Good morning, Royal We Fellowship. I'm so happy that you are here with me this morning. We are running a few minutes behind, but we're going to go ahead and get started. I'll open up in prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, how holy is your name, and your kingdom will come, and your will shall be done here on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us of our sins as we forgive those who sin against us. Lead us not into temptation, and deliver us from the evil of this world. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. And everybody says, Amen. Now we're going to get into very, very interesting things that are taking place. We have been following Abraham throughout his journey in life. We've now been following Isaac throughout his journey in life. And one of the things that we have been running into are these lies. We have seen Abraham lie in order to protect what is righteous and what is virtuous. And we come across these lies as looking at them is somehow not right, when in fact there's something that we need to pay attention to in these bits of lies in our own life. Because if we are protecting virtuousness, if we are protecting righteousness, there is no, as we're going to find out, it's not a bad thing. It is not a bad thing. We've gotten too wrapped up in our society, in our culture, in our Christian views that, well, you can't lie, be honest. And how many of you by now are aware that in a world of toxicity and narcissism, that a lot of times this desire to do everything by the book has landed you in a toxic relationship, bound and enslaved to the toxicity, when in fact you should have done anything you could have to preserve your virtuousness, to preserve your righteousness, to preserve your morals and your values, and get out of the situation. We don't often think of that. We allow these laws and these rules that, well, I won't lie, that's bad. I won't to keep us stuck and keep us bound. All right? We are in Genesis chapter 27. Before we get into Genesis chapter 27, because this is a very difficult one to understand, because we're going to see a lot of lies take place in Genesis 27. It's important to understand that the end of chapter 26, the very last sentence of chapter 26 of Genesis, gives us an important piece of information pertaining to this whole chapter. So I'm going to go ahead and read that. It's this. It's verse 34, chapter 26, verse 34. When Esau was the oldest, by the way, of Isaac's sons. Isaac had two sons, Esau and Jacob. And so we're going to get into their story in here. But at the end of 26, in case I skimmed over it last week, I got to read this. Verse 34, when Esau was 40 years old, he married Judith, daughter of Beeri the Hittite, and also Basemath, daughter of Elon the Hittite. They were they were a source, this is important, they were a source of grief to Isaac and Rebekah. Okay, this is important. I want you to understand this, that Esau, the oldest son of Isaac, the one who was supposed to carry the torch, the one who was supposed to carry the blessings, the one who is the firstborn, entitled to the rights of the firstborn and the blessings, married two women who were Hittite women. He married outside of his culture. He married way outside of his values at the time, way outside of his morals. What would cause him to do this? Haste, anxiousness, a need to get something done right away, a lack of moderation. Rather than waiting, rather than showing as a person who waits on the Lord, waits on what's right, what he did is rush out and found two of the hottest babes in the area who happened to be Hittites. And I'm not going to get into the culture of the Hittite people, but I will say that they were a source of grief for believers and people of God. They were worldly. They were a nation of people who were just very selfish, very entitled, very dangerous, especially to people of morals, of virtues, and of values. The Hittite people would have been the type to go and to take and to ruin and to steal all the riches and claim it as their own. That entitled behavior that many of us, you and I, know of, that we see around us all the time. The entitlement. What's yours is not yours, it's ours. Okay? This is important to understand this attitude, and we see that Esau, when he was 40, he married 2 of them. So Esau, going into this story that we're about to read, Esau's life, his moral compass is split. It's split between doing the right thing by what God has planned in his life, and also now being enslaved because he is, by law, legally bound to these women of these different cultures and this different belief system. So he is now split. He entered into, out of his own haste in life, his own impatience in life, he entered into his own enslavement. Now then, I think you understand this, and I think there's something in just that small verse for you and for me as well. Now let's get into this chapter, chapter 27. Keeping all that in mind, let's see how this chapter goes, because we're going to see a lot of very interesting things take place between Esau, his brother Jacob, and even the mother and father and their involvement. So, verse 1, chapter 27. Genesis chapter 27. When Isaac was old and his eyes were so weak that he could no longer see, he called for Esau, his older son, and said to him, "My son." Esau said, "Here I am." Isaac said, "I am now an old man and don't know the day of my death. Now get your equipment, your bow and your hunting supplies, and go out and hunt for me, my son." And now Rebekah, the wife of Isaac, was listening to this. And when she heard him speak to his son Esau and sent him out, she called Jacob over, the youngest of the 2. And now, again, we need to understand the difference of the 2. Jacob was single. He was known as moderate, very patient. As we saw in the last chapter, Jacob is basically a homebody. He was there with his mom. He was not hastily. He was not out trying to get girls, trying to get women. He wasn't living that lifestyle at all, where we already know that Esau was. Esau was one that was all over the place. He was prideful, arrogant. He was the firstborn. He was the greatest hunter. He was out hunting all the time. He was out finding wives for himself. Okay? It's important that we don't look at the outside as to what the future of that person looks like. So when we look at the outside, from the outside, Esau was the oldest, the greatest, the sportiest. But on the inside, Jacob was the truest, the most moderate, and had the best possible chance of carrying forth the virtue and the morals of this family. Whereas Esau, it could have easily have just been destroyed and given off, okay? Now, according to some other writers and teachers, according to Ambrose and Milan, we can determine early on the lack of moderation is foolish and cannot on its own accord be a disciple of virtue. And this is where we see Esau. And it would be right to deny the foolish one from the freedoms of what blessings like hold. Okay? So we see that Isaac sent his son Esau out to hunt, to bring something back, so that Isaac can then bless him and give him the firstborn, the blessings of the firstborn. But what we are about to see is a plan in the background here to not give Esau that blessing, but instead give that blessing to Jacob. And this is why this makes sense, according to Ambrose and Milan. The lack of moderation is foolish. And in the household, they already understood that Esau had a lack of moderation, which made him very foolish. And it cannot on its own accord be a disciple of virtue. And being a disciple of virtue and doing what's right is very important. So it would be right to deny the foolish one from the freedoms of what blessings hold. Now, verse 7. So Esau continues with, or Isaac rather continues with the son Esau, bring me some game and prepare me some tasty food to eat so that I may give you my blessing in the presence of the Lord before I die. Now, my son, listen carefully and do as I tell you to do. This is Isaac talking to Esau. I'm sorry, this is Rebekah talking to Jacob now. Sorry. So Rebekah is talking to Jacob, saying exactly what Isaac had told Esau. So again, Rebekah tells her son Jacob to go out by the side of where they live. While Esau is out hunting, she tells Jacob, quickly, go and get something from around the house. Get a choice animal so that I can prepare the meal just the way your father likes it. And so he does this. He goes out to the flock, brings 2 choice young goats, and she prepares it. Now, this is where we're about to see the orchestrated plunder of piety, and it's important to understand this word plunder of piety. I'll read more about this in a little bit. Now, verse 11, Jacob said to Rebekah, his mother, but my brother Esau is a hairy man. So he's trying to cover all the bases. He says, Esau is a hairy man while I have smooth skin. So what if my father touches me? I would appear to be tricking him, and I would bring down a curse upon myself rather than a blessing. So he's not necessarily scared of the plunder that's about to take place, of getting the blessing. He's trying to cover all the bases. What if he feels the skin and I don't have the hair? We're about to lie to my father so I can get this blessing. What if he notices? His mother said to him, first of all, my son, let the curse fall on me. Just do what I say. Go and get them for me. This is such an important aspect of what Rebekah wants to see happen and needs to see happen. And I believe that also, ultimately, Isaac also needs this lie to happen, that she's willing to say, let this lie, let it fall on me. Let any curses fall on me, as she's taking it from her son Jacob. This is how important this whole orchestrated plot needs to go down. So Jacob goes, he went and got them and brought the goats to his mother. She prepared the tasty food just the way Isaac liked it. Rebekah took the best clothes of Esau, her older son, which she had in the house, put them on her younger son Jacob. She also covered his hands, the smooth part of his neck, with goat skins. So for any of you who want to know what Esau's skin and the hair on his skin was like, there you go. We know that he was born with a red fur hair, kind of, but the best way to describe it is that of goat skin. Esau had skin like goat skin. Yikes. That's a manly man right there, right? Then she handed to her son Jacob the tasty food and bread she made. And then Jacob took it to his father and said, my father. Isaac responded, yes, my son. But who is it? Verse 19, Jacob said to his father, and this is the beginning of the lie. This is the orchestrated beginning of the plunder. Jacob said to his father, I am Esau, your firstborn. He just lied. He just lied to fulfill what needed to be done. I have done to you, verse 19 continues, I've done as you told me. Please sit up and eat some of this game, my game, so that you may give me your blessing. The goal here is to receive the blessing from Isaac. And so we see the lie has already taken place. It's already been set in motion. This is for the plunder of piety, and a lot of the future of what God is trying to do depends on the ability for not only Jacob, but Rebekah, the wife, and Isaac to all be able to pull this off in this way. Isaac then asked, verse 20, how did you find the game so quickly? In other words, he's saying, I just sent you out. I just sent you out hunting. How did you get this so quickly? And this is an interesting response. Jacob's response is, the Lord your God gave me success. So this is speaking right into the heart of Isaac. This whole plan, this plunder of piety, Rebekah, the father, Isaac and Jacob all in this together to transfer the blessings, of the firstborn, the rights to Jacob. It has to be known that the Lord God gave me success, is giving me success in this. We need to go through with plundering this deity. We need to go through with taking and with stealing this blessing because the Lord God has given me success in this. Speaking that out. Verse 21, then Isaac said to Jacob, come near me so I can touch you, my son, to know whether you really are my son Esau or not. Jacob went close to his father Isaac, who touched him and said, the voice is of Jacob, but the hands are of Esau. Again, he was touching that goat skin. He did not recognize him, for his hands were hairy like those of his brother Esau. He didn't recognize him, but he proceeded to bless him. Are you really my son Esau? He asked. And Jacob responded, I am. He lied again. Verse 25. Then he said, my son, bring me some of your game to eat so that I may give you my blessing. Jacob brought it to him, and he ate, and he brought some wine and drank. Then his father Isaac said to him, come here, my son, and kiss me. So he went to him and kissed him. When Isaac caught the smell of clothes, he blessed him. And here is the blessing. Ah, the smell of my son is like the smell of a field that the Lord has blessed. May God give you heaven's dew and earth's richness, in abundance of grain and new wine. May nations serve you and peoples bow down to you. Be Lord over your brothers, and may the sons of your mother bow down to you. May those who curse you be cursed, and those who bless you be blessed. After Isaac finished blessing him, and that was the blessing, and that's a powerful blessing, by the way, to have all the goods of the earth, all the richness of the earth, and the power of having the nations to serve you and your brothers to bow down to you. There's an awful lot in that blessing that was transferred to Jacob. Quite burdenous. After Isaac finished blessing him and Jacob had scarcely left his father's presence, meaning that Jacob barely got out the door, his brother Esau came in from hunting. Uh-oh. He too prepared some tasty food and brought it to his father. Then he said to him, my father, please sit up and eat some of my game so that you may give me your blessing. His father Isaac asked him, who are you? I am your son, he answered, your firstborn Esau. Isaac trembled violently and said, who is it that hunted game and brought it to me? I ate it just before you came, and I blessed him, and indeed he will be blessed. He's solidifying that blessing. He's saying, in fact, the person I just blessed will be blessed. There's no going back. That is where the blessing is. And when Esau heard his father's words, he burst out with a loud and bitter cry and said to his father, bless me. Me too, Father. This is obviously, anybody, when they feel cheated or wronged, is going to burst out. How many of you are aware of that? We see the bit of pride. But what we don't see, and bless me, me too, Father, the words that are not being spoken is, I am the one that's supposed to be rich. I am the one that's supposed to be the leader. I am the one that is supposed to be the one who nations bow down to. I am the hunter. I am the great red, hairy skin covered Esau. Doggone it. This is what we see when he's saying, bless me too, my father. But Isaac said, your brother came deceitfully and took your blessing. Esau said, isn't he rightly named Jacob? This is the second time he has taken advantage of me. He took my birthright, and now he's taken my blessing. Then he asked, haven't you reserved any blessing for me? So again, he's saying, give me something. Give me some power. Give me some riches. Isaac answered Esau, I have made him lord over you, and have made all his relatives his servants. And I have sustained him with grain and new wine. So what can I possibly do for you, my son? Esau has been, I guess it's a plunder. He's been plundered out of everything that he believed he was owed and should have had. Esau said to his father, "Do you have only one blessing, my father? Bless me too. Bless me, my father." And then Esau began to cry because he lost the blessing of his father. But in reality, according to some of the ancient writings, Esau was on the path to already losing all the blessings of his father by losing the virtue, by moving in his lifestyle from moderation to spontaneous, to needy, to take whatever I want, to go find Hittite women and marry them, to be a lover of materialistic and pleasure, to find pride in the hunting capabilities. And as a response, his father Isaac answered him when he said, "Bless me now, my father." This is the answer, verse 39. "Your dwelling will be away from the earth's richness, away from the dew of heaven above. You will live by the sword," which is what he's good at, hunting, "and you will serve your brother. But when you grow restless, you will throw his yoke from your neck." Verse 41, Esau held a grudge against Jacob because of the blessing his father had given him. He said to himself, "The days of mourning for my father are near. Then I will kill my brother Jacob." Where have we seen this exact sentiment before, except it was accomplished when we look back near the Garden of Eden with Cain and his brother Abel. It was the younger brother Abel who had the best offering, the most moderation, the most virtuous offering given to the Lord between him and his older brother Cain. Cain's was not accepted. This is a mirror of that. And unlike in that story, Cain was able to rise up and kill his own brother Abel. In this story, Jacob had that stewing in his mind and in his heart. He wanted to. This is a part of the loss of the virtue. This is also part of why the lie needed to be orchestrated in the way in which it was. And so that this type of sin, this lack of moderation, would not rise up and take matters into his own hands and find a way to kill off his brother Jacob in order to sustain what Esau believed was his through entitlement. Listen, entitlement and blessings cannot coexist. We cannot live a life of entitlement thinking we get this and we deserve this. And this is where we find ourselves with toxic relationships. Toxic people are highly entitled. It is much better to be virtuous, and it's also better to, if you have to, lie and deceive out of these relationships, out and away from toxicity. Let them have what it is they want to have. And in this, if you look at what Isaac gave to Esau, he gave him what he is. He said, he didn't bless him, but he said, "Your dwelling will be away from the earth's richness." Okay? You don't have the virtue to take care of the richness. It'll be away from the dew of heaven above. You will live by the sword. What does this mean? He's saying, listen, you are who you are, Esau. You are a hunter and a gatherer. Your pride and your ego is attached to your sword. You have made a name for yourself and a reputation for yourself of being a skilled hunter. You have made for yourself in your own mind and your own heart. You've made yourself a king and a prince of hunting. And so you're going to live by that. You've created your persona, Esau. You have created who you are. Now, how many of you are aware that when we translate this over to toxic people that we know, we have to give them what it is they want to be? So when the narcissist that you know who is loudmouthed, arrogant, cursing, they like to be the badass one. How many of you know that narcissist? I'm a badass. Give them that. They've created that life for themselves, and this is what they will live by. And we have to be able to walk away and even deceive our way and lie our way out of these toxic relationships. I've had to do that. I've had to make plans to leave California and to get away from my wife's siblings without letting them know exactly how it was going to be done. We orchestrated it. My family orchestrated it in such a way that they would not have an opportunity to confront and to throw a toxic wrench into the middle of it, because highly entitled, narcissistic, toxic people will do just that. They want to know exactly what's going on so they can throw a toxic wrench. So there comes a place in time where being deceptive in an orchestrated manner, not to take something, not to be violent, but to preserve piety, to preserve virtue, that is a different thing altogether. And that is what we're seeing here. So Esau, verse 41, did hold a grudge. Now, I want to read this. This is from an ancient, not an ancient teaching, but this is an older teaching of this, and it's going to clarify exactly what I just said. This is from Ambrose of Milan. Okay. Ambrose of Milan writes about this whole situation. Turning to this example, we don't want to make an unfair judgment between the sons. Okay, let's not make an unfair judgment between Esau and Jacob, even Isaac and Rebekah in this lie that took place. From this line of conduct, fraternal hatreds are aroused, and the crime of fratricide is contrived to gain a worthless sum of money. So what we're seeing within Esau is his love and his pride over money and possessions over the life of his own brother. We saw this same in Cain, when Cain killed his brother Abel. It comes down to earthly possession as being prized over virtue. This is exactly why Esau could not carry the blessing, because his desire for earthly possessions was greater than his desire for virtue. And this is why Jacob, Isaac, Rebekah had to go through with this lie in order to give the blessing to where moderation existed. Let children be nurtured. Ambrose Milan continues on. Let children be nurtured with an equal measure of devotion, granted that one's love may fasten more upon some trait in a child who is more agreeable or similar to oneself. The exercise of justice ought to be the same in regard to all. The more that is given to the child that is loved and who seeks his brother's love, the more is taken away from the one who is burdened with jealousy at the unfair preferment. Esau threatened that he would kill his brother. Neither the fact of brotherhood nor respect for their parents kept him from this fratricidal madness. And he grieved that the blessing had been snatched away from him, whereas he should have proved himself worthy of it by forbearance rather than by crime. Again, this is the story of Cain and Abel. If these people, if the narcissists of the world would only learn to prove themselves ahead of time by the forbearance of their actions and conduct their lives in a way that is virtuous and deserves the dignity, then they can get these things. But instead, they want to take things by force, and they want to wrap their pride and their ego up in it. He continues on, however, Rebekah did not prefer one son to another, but a just son to an unjust one. And indeed, with that pious mother, God's mysterious plan was more important than her offspring. She did not so much prefer Jacob to his brother. This is important. What Ambrose of Milan here is saying is important. This did not happen because Isaac and Rebekah did not like their son Esau. It had nothing to do with preferring Jacob over Esau. It had nothing to do with them not loving Esau. It had everything to do with them being just people. They knew the intentions of God in their life. They know justice. They're moving forward with what's just. They could not justify in their hearts giving their unjust son, Esau, the blessings of the leadership of the nations and the servitude of all of the siblings when he was an unmoderate, person who is out taking whatever he wanted, even wives from an unknown place, a dangerous place that caused Isaac and Rebekah grief in their life. Esau just was not smart. His haste and his pride and his ego caused him to get into whatever he wanted to get into. This is why they had to deceive him out of his blessing, not because they didn't like him. And in reality, they are showing their love in a way. How many of you understand the principle that if you deal with a sibling who is an alcoholic or a druggie, it's best to do whatever you can to hide the alcohol and drugs away from them. If you have to even contact a way to get them into a rehab, you don't do it because you hate them. You do it because you love them, but you're doing what's just. How much of this makes sense to you? So Rebekah did not so much as prefer Jacob to his brother. Rather, she offered him to the Lord, for she knew that he could protect the gift that the Lord had bestowed. In the Lord she took counsel also for her other son. She withdrew from him from God's disfavor, lest he incur graver culpability if he lost the grace of the blessing he did receive. Very fascinating to see this orchestrated. Verse 41 or 42. When Rebekah was told what her older son Esau had said, which is Esau said, I will kill Jacob for this. She sent for her younger son Jacob and said to him, now your brother Esau is planning to avenge himself for you taking his money, right? He's going to avenge himself by killing you. Now then, my son, do what I say. Flee at once to your brother Laban in Haran. Stay with him for a while until your brother's fury subsides. When your brother is no longer angry with you and forgets what you did to him, I'll send word for you to come back from there. Why should I lose both of you in one day? Then, this is an interesting part. Going back to the end of the last chapter, 26, talking about how Esau had married Hittite women. They had become a source of grief for Isaac, for Rebekah, for the whole family. They threatened the existence. They threatened their life. Verse 46, Rebekah said to Isaac, I am disgusted with living because of these Hittite women. If Jacob takes a wife from among the women of this land, from Hittite women like these, my life will not be worth living. This is how bad the toxicity of the Hittites were. This is how threatening they were, how grievous they were to both Rebekah, to Isaac, and to their sons. It's safe to say that Esau had gotten himself caught up in an extremely toxic situation. Jacob had not yet done that. One of the things that we can also see with these blessings is that the plan all along from Rebekah was to get her son Jacob away from there, away from the culture where they were currently living, away from the Hittite people, back to Haran. And the best way to do this would be to give then Jacob the blessings of the firstborn to carry with him, because Jacob is going to be going by himself. And so Jacob is now sent away from his family, from where they are. But in order to get away and to break free from the potential enslavement of toxicity that Esau already got them stuck on the path with, Esau, out of his haste and out of his pride, rushed off, got married, and started to integrate and enmesh their family with the very dangerous people. And he did so out of his own selfishness, out of his own pride. And so for this reason, Rebekah was able to fulfill that part of her plan as well, saying we can't have more of this, because surely if Jacob does the same thing as Esau, marries someone from this toxicity, we're done. We're done. This whole plan is done. Being the father of many nations and this and that, these Hittite people are crazy. They'll steal it all. So that in fact, was a big part of this as well. There's a lot that's going on in this chapter, a lot that we've talked about. And with that, I'm going to sign off. Be with us. Be with us next Saturday morning at 9 o'clock a.m. Central Standard Time for Royal We Fellowship. In this, we're gaining some understanding about dishonesty, about when to use it, when not to use it. When we are talking about this, which again, this is what we see here is a story about a plunder of piety. That we see the plan was for Jacob to rush in and steal blessings, not to steal goods, not to steal money, not to steal anything physical of this world, but to steal blessings. And when we're talking about protecting ourselves so that we can remain blessed and virtuous in life, it's okay to lie, to get out of toxic situations so that we can maintain our blessing and our virtue. And if you have to lie to get out of a toxic relationship, then by all means, do what it takes to maintain your virtue and to go forward in life. It is not unvirtuous, as we can see here. It is not unvirtuous to walk away with your blessings and your integrity if what you're lying for is for the protection and perseverance of your own integrity. And I know we struggle with this. We're saying, wait a minute, a lie cannot protect anything. There's no virtue in that at all. But as we're seeing here, oftentimes this type of dishonesty is the only thing that can protect you and get you out of certain toxic situations, especially if it means that you are in a situation that you can lose your life. And how many of you in toxic situations have lost your life, in fact? If not physically, but lost your life mentally and emotionally, possibly even spiritually. This is a result of not finding a way out, even if by deception. Does this make sense? And so you risk losing everything inside of you, your virtues, your morals, your values. And in toxic relationships, that's exactly what we lose. If anything gets killed off in our toxic relationships, it's our sense of self, our morals, our values, and our virtues. With that, we'll be back next Saturday morning, 9 o'clock a.m. Central Standard Time, right here on Royal We Fellowship. We will have lots of videos uploaded on the organic channel throughout this week. And I am looking forward to being here with you Monday night as well. Monday night is going to be live chat. If you are not a part of live chat, I encourage you to be there. You can ask questions. We could talk about this more if you would like. And I'll be back next Saturday. Shabbat Shalom, everybody, and have a great weekend and a very blessed week. Bless you all this week, and have a great day. Bye.